sad week in Atlanta, particularly for one of Atlanta's most accomplished and nattily attired neighborhood leaders. MPU chair, APAB board member, Barney Simms was shot down like a dog, if you say, in his front yard this week. A tragic loss to a man who was a political power broker, a knower, and a political influencer. Gone for virtually no reason.
Well, Barney was one of a kind. I mean, that's pretty much a cliche, but indeed, Barney Simms was really kind of one of a kind. We won't be another Barney passing this way ever, in my opinion. He had the outstanding capacity to just blend in and make things happen.
He made things happen too, didn't he?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's almost like unintrusive, but almost like you're doing it and you really didn't intend to do it, maybe. But Barney was an extraordinary young man.
But you two had some disagreements. I mean, over when he was with the Atlanta Housing Authority and public housing projects, you two differed, but were close friends.
Oh, absolutely. Gentrification is real, and I think that, and maybe he didn't fully understand the full implications of what removing 50,000 people from the city of Atlanta would do. Of course, it was considered vogue. It was a thing to do because there was simply too many poor black people, or poor people, they didn't say black, but poor people in Atlanta. Now, of course, the essence of that, unless you know the history, and I happen to have lived long enough to remember the history when Atlanta was not a black town, and when we were pushed off the plantations in the rural areas, that we caught the train or the bus, and wherever it stopped, and at that time it stopped in Central City. And so that's where we stopped because we didn't have any money. And so when the blacks started coming in numbers in their 70s, 60s, then the whites said, we don't want to be around this black riffraff. And so they took flight to the north. And of course now as the years have gone by, it's not convenient to drive 2 hours. The traffic is horrible, and people want to come back to the city. But there's many people that still don't want to live around, especially poor black people. And so they said, we're coming back, and so you're gonna have to go somewhere. And so there's been various kind of ruses used to make it fashionable to get rid of the poor blacks. And I don't know whether Mr. Simms really bought into it or not, but I didn't directly attack him, but I did Renee Glover, who the buck stopped with her. And she and Shirley Franklin, who I also like, Renee. You don't have to be ugly with people because you disagree with them, and so.
But you vehemently disagreed.
Well, and we kind of agreed in the instance of Barney that we agreed that we'd just disagree on this one, and of course I didn't lose my passion for it, but I lost the battle because Atlanta now has been gentrified, and it's picking up, quite frankly. Yeah.
But here's somebody who dealt with housing. That's what we're talking about now with this gentrification. Will his imprint be the changing face of Atlanta, maybe?
Well, we're still in grieving, really. And as a matter of fact, I'm leaving here, going for a planning meeting because we know it will be quite a crowd at the church. I know it will be probably beyond the capacity of the sanctuary. So we're trying to, the pastors making plans and to see what we can do to accommodate the crowd that's coming.
Tell us about his work at Antioch, with your church.
Well, yeah, Barney joined Antioch in 1969, the same year that pastor came to the church. And of course, my pastor's a Morehouse man, which means he's well educated. But at his level, he don't do his own correspondence, maybe he put an outline out there. And then he's relied on Barney to to make sure that all the dots are crossed, I's, so he's a man of detail, and Reverend has, trusted him and relied on him in that regard.
He seemed to be a man of class and distinction too. I mean, obviously the look, he had the most distinctive looking mustache I've ever seen. But was he known for his nattily attired?
Well, again, there won't be another Barney. I mean, his appearance, and he was a gentleman, and so just couldn't, in spite of what might have been going on with public housing and stuff. Barney Simms was just was different, and he's my friend, and we'll miss him.
Joe, he was on seemingly a dozen boards. I mean, how many? But the one for this particular show, it was an APAB show. So he was on the APAB board and chairman of his NPU. He was very involved in neighborhoods.
Well, he was a leader, and as you know, leaders are not really born. Barney made up his mind. I don't know how early on, I guess, or whatever he's going to be engaged in, and that he would be leading it. And quite frankly, even though Renee had the title, but I think Barney was the one that made things happen at the Atlanta Housing Authority.
How important was his leadership with regards to Atlanta's neighborhoods? I mean, just to read about it, I didn't live in this community, but to hear about him, his house, his home, and his neighborhood was almost pristine in terms of its look and the way it presented itself.
Yeah, especially in the decay that's all around. So I've never been to Barney's home myself, but I've never been on his street that I'm aware of. But just seeing the pictures from, would suggest that he was very meticulous, and not only in his personal dress, but also in his, his home, and I guess the yard is like a manicured.
They did a manicured yard.
Yeah. So, but we'll miss Barney. I think he has made a positive contribution to the city. No question about it. That the things he's done, I think, will redound to the glory of Atlanta. Yeah.
Joe, it almost seems tragic. Beyond the killing, but here's a man of the community who was felled by the community. I mean, he's got supposedly a young suspect. I mean, it just doesn't seem fair that he died at the hands of those he tried to help, and figuratively speaking.
Well, it is poetic. I don't know how to put it, but and of course we don't know all the details, right. But we just do know this, that human beings don't deserve to be shut down in their own yard. That is just that's barbaric, and it's just something that further grieves me that that maybe in the last moments, that something terrible happened.
This hurts you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, because Barney was, he was always present, and now that he's retired several years ago, he would be at church very often. I would see him, and we would talk about, well, what are you doing now that you're completely retired? Because he retired actually 2 or 3 times.
Ah.
Yeah, he was at the community college. He was a vice president, and I guess he retired from that before he went to the housing authority. So it's been.
He's had his hands on an awful lot of Atlanta's development and growth,
and he managed it well.
And a lot to have impact in the black community too, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of what he did seemed to have some sort of impact on the least of these, at least.
Well, where our church is located, it's in one of the most poorest areas in the city. The zip code 30314. The bluff is there. And most of all of the maladies that befall poor people in our society live right in the church community.
Which is right on Northside Drive and...
Northside Drive, now it's Cameron Alexander Boulevard.
That's right, excuse me.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
To salute to our great pastor.
Yeah. But many people come and terrible need, and I could always go to Barney, and if it was anything in his power that he could do, he would find a way to help people.
Joe, let me tell you something he did for me. And it had me in tears. I needed housing. I'm over 62, so I could. He said, "Well, let me work out something for you." He said, "But you got to be a little patient." But I got you. So many words. Joe, I didn't find out till yesterday. And he did get me in a place. He said, this is the only one you should go to. So he got me in this particular senior housing. He said, "Believe me, I know which one you should be in." He said, "Let me take care of it." But Joe, I didn't realize the resident manager told me, and I hope you don't mind my calling you Joe on TV.
No,
But she told me, she said, "Maynard, do you know, for 6 months, every Thursday at 3 o'clock, he called me and asked me, where's Maynard on the list?" For 6 months, every Thursday.
Well, you know, that was Barney.
Yeah.
Barney, he had put it on his list of things to do, and he'd make sure it would get done.
He got it done, and I was just shocked to hear that and know that he would be that determined and on the case. You know, I call him from time to time. He said, "I told you, he said, just be patient. I'm gonna get you." So, he would never tell me he was working that hard. You know.
And one of the things that he knew that you belonged on Peachtree Street.
Yeah, that's what he said. That's where I live. Yeah, he said he'd say that. He'd say that too.
Absolutely, you need to be close to Buckhead. You're almost there. So
I'm almost there.
That's Barney Simms for you.
Really?
Yeah.
That said a lot about him, huh?
Yeah, and he'll do it for the poorest person, the person that have no so-called pedigree, and he would get nothing in return for it. And I think that's the things that we do for others, and not expecting anything in return is one of the highest attributes, I think, of the human personality.
We're taping this earlier because his going home service is Saturday or Saturday, I imagine.
It's Saturday at noon.
What do you see that to be like? Well, when this will be airing, this interview will be airing as you're in church. What do you sense that's going to be like?
Well, Atlanta will turn out, and I believe that we'll have, which is kind of different for Atlanta, that we'll have an integrated crowd there. He had a lot of friends from both sides of town, and from all walks of life. So I think we'll have kind of like what Atlanta should be.
Well, Atlanta should be.
Yeah, at a church. Because as it stands now, our most segregated hour is still at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning.
Still that, that's right.
And so at some point we might get this Christian avocation right. And I think we'll see a glimpse of it at Barney's service on Saturday.
Do you know who might be giving the eulogy, or who was Reverend Alexander?
Absolutely. I would be more than shocked if he didn't, but I'm always sure it'll be Reverend Alexander presiding.
Any last words about your friend? Any words you might want to just leave to our audience?
Barney, we're glad you passed this way, and your steps and that you left, nobody else can walk in his shoes. So we'll miss Barney, but we'll move on. The world is better, Atlanta's better because Barney Simms passed this way.
The next person you're going to hear from is another good friend who thought he was right on point with regard to public housing and right on point as to how he dressed. Miss Brenda Muhammad.
It's a major loss for Atlanta and its citizens.
Wait, talk about that.
Well, Barney Simms contributed in so many ways to the city and the functioning of the city, serving on various boards, serving his community, and his work and his day-to-day work prior to retiring. I mean, when you look at public housing and what it used to be and what housing is now, a lot of that is attributed to Barney Simms and his work and his efforts. I mean, because it was hard moving a lot of those folk that were used to living in the traditional public housing. And it was very difficult to get them to understand that they deserved and could live a better life. But Barney was able to convey that and paint a picture so they could see it. And we have so many people out there now who are in homes who say, had it not been for Barney Simms, I wouldn't be here.
Now, just prior to you, we talked with a friend of yours, Joe Beasley,
Yes.
who said, despite his friendship with Barney Simms, they went head to head over that one. They totally disagreed.
I'm sure.
He didn't disagree with that. He thought it was ushering in gentrification, as you well know. But
Yeah, well, you know, I hear a lot about gentrification, and I love Joe Beasley. He is one of those that I admire a lot because I appreciate him standing up for what he believes in. But the one thing, you know, we talk a lot about gentrification, and gentrification has had its impact on our communities. But, you know, I'm not angry because I'm really happy that my trash is being picked up more regularly. I'm very happy that my streets are cleaner and that I have a stronger police presence. So if gentrification brings that, if gentrification brings a grocery store to my community, if gentrification brings a pharmacy to my community that for years we did not have, you know, and better conditions, better schools, you know, I can't fault gentrification. I think if we talk about living together, that is a part of gentrification.
and you're saying that Barney Simms had a major hand in having some of that come about.
Of course. I mean, you can either keep people poor and in poor environments, or you can move them, you know, and help them to understand that they deserve more and better and that they're capable of getting it.
He seemed to have his hand in many pots in terms of boards, not only yours, but let's talk a bit about APAB and his NPU. I mean, he seemed to be a really hands-on, strong neighborhood leader.
Barney Simms was committed to whatever he was involved in. And if he wasn't committed or didn't believe in it, I never known him to just volunteer or offer his time to be a part of it. And he would tell you straight up, I really like you, but I don't support that cause, or I don't believe in the position that it takes.
That happened with you, right? Before he became chairman of
my board.
Your board. Didn't he ask about?
Oh, he definitely asked, and he wanted to know, well, what are you expecting of me? You know, how much time am I going to have to give? You know, I need to really look at some fundraising that I'm going to have to be doing for some other things first. But I was able to persuade him after maybe a year.
After a year?
After almost a year to come on the board.
Now, I read in AJC that Bill Torpy wrote that you were quoted as saying that he wanted to know from you what it's like to be a victim.
Oh, yeah, and he definitely, well, he has asked me that question as a survivor, you know,
right.
What it was like, you know, to go through that pain, you know, and
of losing your son.
Of losing a loved one, and having to go through court and, you know, those things that are associated with it, trying to find the perpetrator. And it's so amazing that you're asking me that now because, you know, it's just what we're going through now is just reliving that all over again, you know. But I'm grateful that I know more now than I knew when my son was murdered. So it's been helpful to me. All of my work and all of my years of this work have contributed to the work that I have to do in these last week or so to help Barney and his family.
And this has been a trying week for you, but your son was murdered 20 years ago, about?
Yes, 26 years ago.
Isn't it sad, tragic that there are going to be two victims here again?
there are going to be more than two victims here. You have the family of the victim himself, that's first, and then you have the family of the victim, all the children, his daughter, his son, his grandchildren, his brother and sister, and other loved ones, and friends and neighbors. All of those individuals, all of us have been victimized by this and traumatized by it. And then you've got the family of the young man, the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator. You've got that family, not necessarily the person, the perpetrator who did it, but look at his mother, and what she's going to have to go. This woman or whomever, they have to walk around now for the rest of their life with their head hanging down in shame for something that their child has done. That's overwhelming. I mean, it's no mother wants her child to be murdered, and no mother wants her child to murder another mother's child.
But here we are in Atlanta, and it seems to be not only a friend, Barney Simms, but we're seeing that happen more and more, are we not?
Too much. And it's more the crimes, they say that the crime rate is down, and that may be, but the crimes are more heinous. They're more things that you wouldn't ever think of, like breaking into an elderly person's house, an elderly woman, and raping her and killing her, setting somebody on fire. I mean, just the things, just the rage, the car rage that folk go through. It's just crazy.
And Barney Simms shot down his front
yard.
And
Barney shot in his front yard. But people get shot in different places. But here's a 70-year-old man that was shot. How cowardly of the perpetrator. Why would you shoot a 70-year-old man? What could he really do to you?
That's true.
You could have overpowered him. But if in fact it was about his car, he would have given it to them. That's the kind of person Barney Simms was. He would have given it to them. If they needed money, he would have given them some work around there to do. He was always allowing people to work, to earn a few dollars, to help people. He helped people. And it's just so sad. It's just unbelievable.
This really has gotten to you.
It has torn me apart. It really, because if we can lose the Barney Simms of the world in our communities, what does that say to the person next door?
And here's a man who was a somebody in Atlanta.
A big somebody.
A big somebody. Tell me about Barney Simms. A big somebody.
Lord, you don't want me to start talking about Barney.
Yeah. And put a smile on your face. He was a good fella, huh?
I can see him standing over there right now. Like a tall tree. Sharp as a tack.
Sharp as a tack.
Cool as a cucumber. Dapper as a Dan. That was Barney Simms. Everybody loved him. He just commanded respect and admiration.
He had a presence about him.
Oh, he had a presence. Let me tell you, when he walked in a room, you knew he was there. And he walked like it. He didn't try to hide it in any way.
Now, one of the most prominent pictures that's been used since this tragic killing is a shot the two of you took together at some function, because it looked, ooh.
Oh, we were always at some function. We used to be at a whole lot of functions, but I think Shirley Franklin stole him away from me. And then he would, sometimes he and Shirley would go out and, but we were out a lot. I've gotten so many calls with people, just offering condolences and sympathy because they knew of our relationship. Barney was like a brother to me. He was that brother.
You also mentioned prior to our getting this interview, he was a principled person.
Quite principled, quite.
What does that mean to somebody? What does that mean to Atlanta? What does that mean to our legacy here? To how Atlanta's grown? His principled values has shown up in his work and the impact he's left with people.
Well, as you know, Barney served on a lot of boards. He served on the Liquor License and Review Board. He served on DFACS Board, APAB, Community, his Bonnie Brook Community Organization, the NPU. But you know, in all of those, there are governing roles.
Yes.
And you have to make decisions that impact those that you're serving. And sometimes people make decisions based on political reasons or aspirations or what other. And some people are just principled and are going to do whatever is the right thing, you know, whatever it is to uphold the mission of whatever the entity is, or that's going to benefit those that it serves. Barney is the latter. You know, but you know, the amazing thing about him, I never saw him struggle about the decisions that he made. You know, like sometimes you go, did I make a bad decision there? Should I have voted another way? Or should I be worried about the consequences?
Never blinked, huh?
Never seen him blink. If he made the decision about what he was going to, I don't think he talked about it. And then when they would vote and you go, did he really vote against that? Did he really vote for that? I mean, it was like, wow. Which is, I think, perhaps what drew me to him closer was that I knew that he was a principled person and that he was going to do whatever the right thing was no matter what.
But Mrs. Muhammad, he was a political power broker, though, too. But he was a political player, wasn't he?
Of course, and that was the interesting thing, you know. I mean, even though this was his method of operating, you know, he was a principled person, they still allowed him, you know, people wanted him on boards. And you look at the boards that he served on, I guess that's the reason why, you know, that's a quality that people look for. I know it was a quality that we look for at Atlanta Victim Assistance.
And he helped. He made a difference to your organization?
Oh, yeah, he made a difference, made sure that we had our regular strategic planning and that we had specific goals and objectives that, you know, we were going to address, and he held us to that. Whenever we had our board meetings, he wanted reports on those, wanted to know how in our development area that, you know, we had a plan and that we were working toward that plan. And most recently, he was encouraging new leadership on the board, younger people, you know, to bring some younger people to the board that could lead it into, you know, a new area.
Finally, in that regard, being head of Atlanta Victim Assistance, are you troubled by the signs you see about
I'm quite
victimization?
Troubled. I'm very troubled. I've been doing this now for almost 30 years, as you know. And one time when my son was murdered, there was this mass on, you know, where young people were killing young people.
Right.
You know, there were gangs and drugs were just getting into our communities in a kind of big way. And things were happening to young people, and it was fearful. I was very fearful. So it's, you know, it kind of died down over some of those years, but over recent years, you know, with the access to guns by young people, it's out of control. I mean, this thing is out of control, and we need to do something about it. And I'm going to tell you, the thing that's bothering me is when I look at the Barney Simms of the world and some others, you know, that have been very close to us, or people that we know, where either they have been murdered or their children have been, you know, friends that we hear about whose children are here for college or away at college and don't make it back home. You know, I think everybody is afraid and affected, and you shouldn't have to live like that. You shouldn't have to live when you lie in your bed and you got to wonder if you forgot to lock the door. You know, and get up, disturb your peace to go lock your door. You shouldn't have to live where people that look like you, when they are around you, you are afraid of them because you don't know who they are and what their motive is. And it shouldn't be that there's always a motive. Why can't it be that people just care about each other and nobody's out to get you, to kill you, to rob you, to rape you? You know, that it shouldn't be. It's, yeah, it has taken its toll. And I've seen too many babies. I've been to too many funerals of babies that are being buried because of gunfire. You know, I've seen too many mothers' children, too many young men who had promise taken away from us.
Right.
It's devastating. It's just devastating.
This interview will air Saturday, right about the time you'll be sending them home. Give me a sense of what that atmosphere is going to be like. You think? What do you think this going home service is going to be like?
Well, I can tell you, we were planning today, and you know, we're honestly trying to keep it down to 2,000 people. You know, and we don't. I don't know how that's going to be possible,
Wow.
but we're trying to work on that. The family has been extremely strong, and they want people to celebrate Barney and his life. It's going to be tough because everybody has a story about Barney.
Right.
And let me tell you, Barney had connections that could make anything happen. I mean, he could make things happen. But guess what? He never did it for Barney. He never, I mean, there are times where, I said, why didn't you call so-and-so? Well, you could have called so. I said, Barney, why did it? No, he never did that. That was not, he didn't operate like that. Everybody he knew and every contact he had and whatever influence he had, it was to help somebody else.
That's that principle you're talking about.
That's right.
That integrity.
That's right. It was never about him.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts about him.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank you for allowing me to.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure.
He was a great guy, wasn't he?
He was, I will.
One last question, though. I got to ask this. What was up with the mustache? What was that?
Oh, that was his thing. You know, that was his thing. Somebody who was I don't know, somebody's always talking to him about cutting it. Yeah. If you just let me cut it. You know, that was his.
That was his signature.
His signature. His hair and his mustache.
Yeah, hair was.
Well, his everything.
Yeah.
Because you looked him from head to toe every time you saw him. You know, you went from, is the hair in order? Is the mustache there? You know, what kind of tie does he have on? Is his signature, is his shirt monogram? You know, what kind of cufflinks are you wearing? You know, what kind of tie, what kind of little handkerchief? Oh, and oh my God, the shoes. Oh my goodness. And he strutted too, he strutted. That Barney Simms, there is no other like Barney Simms. There will never be another like Barney Simms. And he will always, always be with us. I guarantee you that 10 years from now, as others fade away that you've met along the way, you will always see Barney Simms because he's just embedded in you. Not only vision, but also in your heart.
You know, this was a tough story, interview to do. For personal reasons, like I said, Barney Simms helped me. But this is tragic, it's sad, it's senseless. A waste of a darn good life. But it's also reflective of how important he was. If he wasn't so good, if he did help so many, if he didn't have a political influence and power and prestige, a few of us would care. But we really do care about this one. We really do care. He'll be missed. I'm Maynard Eaton for People TV.